In Wednesday's House Judiciary Committee hearing, sparks flew when Republican Matt Gaetz mocked Democrat Mondaire Jones for losing his primary. The committee was amid a marathon session debating pending legislation and was mired in a tense argument about January 6th and the death of Officer Brian Sicknick. Gaetz mocked Jones for losing his primary, stating that Republicans' points of inquiry were a preview of what will happen if they take back the House in the midterms, while noting that some wouldn't be there following this term. Jones fired back that Gaetz had asked former President Trump for a pardon, citing reports that the Florida lawmaker had sought out the 45th president for a presidential pardon relating to alleged sex trafficking offenses. Take a look at the shocking exchange.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Also, I think that statement predates the report that suggested a cause of death based on science, not based on chronology. The broader point is that there wasn't a Capitol police officer bludgeoned to death on January 6th. People can take exception with what was written about Mr. Sicknick.
Yeah, but Mr.
Certainly,
Gaetz,
it's a tragedy that he died.
Mr. Gaetz.
Hold, Mr. Jones, here's what I find real interesting. The January 6th committee got its authority to set the historical record, to deliver the truth to the American people. And they couldn't even deliver the truth to the gentleman from New York. I mean, we had this entire committee process that was supposed to inform the country as to what happened. And on this basic question, it seems as though my colleague fell for an urban legend.
Mr. Gaetz,
Would the gentleman yield?
you concede that if January 6th, if the insurrection had not happened on that day, Mr. Sicknick would still be alive.
That's not how cause of death is determined, Mr. Jones. Cause of death is not determined but for causality. It's a scientific thing that caused the death. You have the actual decision. Look, at the end of the day, this ROI is about whether or not we're going to get the information.
Time belongs to the gentleman from Florida.
Whether or not we're going to get the information about the federal.
Mr. Gaetz, will you yield?
I tell you what, y'all have not been too kind on the yielding, so I'm going to finish my point.
I yielded to Mr. Bishop.
Well, lucky for him, I guess. My point is that I'm supporting the ROI. I believe it should be advanced to the House favorably because we have not gotten straight answers from the federal government about their activities on January 6th. And that is what we seek. And we know that you're going to vote against this request for information, but we are utilizing this time today because it is important for us to showcase to the American people what they're going to be getting in a House majority. And by the way, some of the people making debate aren't even going to be part of the minority because they couldn't win their primaries. But in the majority, when we take over, accountability is coming. These questions are going to be answered, and you're going to have federal officials in depositions and before us responding to these things. And maybe after that, we won't have members of Congress saying that you had Capitol police officers bludgeoned to death on January 6th when that is not a scientific finding.
But we will still have multiple Republican members of this committee having asked President Donald Trump for pardons in connection with
the gentleman from Florida.
Mr. Gaetz, that would include you, Mr. Gaetz.
I tell you what, Mr. Jones,
that would include
we'll have a great time. We'll have a great time on this committee.
The gentleman from Florida controls the time.
Yeah, and I would leave the smarty boy comments to those of us who win our elections. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.